Took me a long time to get around to playing it, but I finally finished Witcher 3 in the last couple months, and I have to say it's turned into one of my most favorite games of all time. The game itself has a lot going for it, has many strong points that I can make, and I just want to tie together a couple here. Now, in an RPG, it pretty much always starts with the writing. The writing has to be top-notch. In Witcher 3, that writing is great. It has so many good emotional moments, from sadness to happiness. The humor is spot on when they bring it out and not over the top. It's really great that way. And there's a lot of subtle moments as well. Of course, it's not only having a great story. In order to express the story, you have to have really great audio visual components in a game. And Witcher 3 really hits the mark on both of these. The animation of the characters is so good. I've never seen a game so spot on when it comes to non-verbal communication as Witcher 3 is. The body language is always great. It can give you more insights into a character's dialogue, as well as the facial expressions. There are some really great times here that you can learn a lot more by reading a character's body language or facial expression than just listening to the dialogue. And most importantly, and unlike other games, it's not over the top usually in Witcher 3. It's something that's just reasonably believable, and that's hard to find in games. And speaking of believable things that are also hard to find in games, the voice acting in this game is great as well. They've really tied together the conversation and the dialogue by having these conversations that actually flow together and aren't stilted and disjointed like you find in a lot of games. Now, Witcher 3 does something even better with these aspects of great writing, great animation, and great voice work. They actually give the player some impactful and difficult, long-lasting decisions to make with very ambivalent consequences. I know myself, I ended up thinking about some of these decisions for a very long time, trying to think about what I wanted my character to do. In fact, it adds to the replayability of this title because there are some major things you can decide on that really affect the whole game. So you can go back in a New Game Plus or just a completely new game and revisit the whole story with a different take on certain portions of it. And speaking of additional content to Witcher 3, the side quests are the best side quests I've ever seen in a game. They've applied their great story writing, their animation, their voice work to these side quests, so much so that even the side quests feel like they would be a main quest in other games as well. It's definitely the best side quest I've ever seen. There are some downsides or some issues with Witcher 3. The main one for me being the inventory management is definitely a little pain, particularly when you consider it's a very long game, so you have to deal with it very often. Now, being a long game as well, you also have to have time to play the game. You have to be interested in that world as well to play it for such a long time, and it can get a little bit repetitive over that gameplay time. There's a couple of other issues. The scaling with your level seems to be a little bit off. They've added an upscaling option, which may or may not be worth it for you. The horse that you ride, Roach, he can get a little bit frustrating to control. It can be hilarious, but also a little frustrating at times. And my other most obnoxious thing I found in the game was being attacked by sirens when you're on the boat in the Skellige Islands. If you're considering playing Witcher 3, I do have a few last notes for you. First being, if you don't like fantasy games or you don't like the world this is set in, I would probably not worry about playing this game. It has a lot to it, but you have to be somewhat into getting invested in this world in order to really get the most from playing Witcher 3. Now, speaking of getting the most from Witcher 3, you do not need to play Witchers 1 and 2. Although I enjoyed both of those games, the storyline in Witcher 3 does a good job of introducing you to everything you need to know without having to do anything in Witchers 1 and 2. Finally, Blood and Wine DLC is a whole new game or a whole new storyline with a couple new mechanics, and it is very worthwhile if you enjoyed Witcher 3, the main game. I really enjoyed Blood and Wine, and I put in probably an additional 40 hours into that game on top of the 100 hours I put into the Witcher 3 main game. So definitely look at doing that if you enjoyed Witcher 3.